Yeah, it's just beautiful. Yeah, but this jacket was tailor made for me in Thailand,
Really?
in Hua Hin. Yeah.
Hua Hin, and look at it. It's a beautiful
Hua Hin.
jacket.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's a
still
beautiful
fits. You
man
haven't
wearing
you
a
haven't you
beautiful
haven't
jacket.
put on too much weight since then. That's good.
I'm
I was
actually
going to say those
quite.
buttons are looking a little tight, Nick.
And welcome Deb to the conversation, everyone.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Woke Blokes podcast. Let's do a formal introduction. I'm your host, Ryan Hassan, joined as always by Nico from Myndfit, Nick Sutherland.
So
and
I'd be the co-host then, I guess.
we're co-hosts.
Okay.
Yeah. We're much more than that, I think. But,
Yes, we are.
for this purpose,
we are.
we'll be co-hosts. Nico, before we introduce our fantastic guest, which I'm going to get you to introduce, how have you been this week? What's news?
Well, I'm excited about our guest. I can't wait to get into it. It's going to be a ripper of a podcast, people. Strap yourselves in. But apart from that, I'm great. I actually have to talk to our guest in the next couple of days about something I've got going on. Deb's coming in to run some meditation.
Well, you guys
work,
can just have that
so-
business meeting here if you like, and everyone can tune in.
Great, fantastic. Apart from that, what else has been going on?
You've got to do a shout out.
I do have to do a shout out to Christy. Christy gave me a call yesterday. She said she saw my truck driving down the Nepean Highway, and it's got my obviously business sign right.
It's a big burly car with big signage
It's
on
a
it.
dual cab Land Rover Defender Ute. It's a
Your voice
it's
got
like
a little bit deeper
military-
then.
It's like a military looking vehicle.
It's just big and beefy and got
A
me
bit
name on
of
the side of it.
testosterone leaked out. A bit of testosterone just squirted somewhere, and so I got this phone call, and this lady's like, "Oh, hi Nick, I saw your car driving down the Nepean Highway, and I loved the business name, so I googled it and found your website, and then found that you do a podcast, and so I've been listening to that, and I've got to say it's amazing and it's wonderful." And she said, I have to restrict myself to only listening to 2 episodes a day, otherwise I just binge and listen to it.
What's she getting
all day,
through them
every
too
day.
fast?
Yes.
Jeez.
So
That's fair
yeah,
enough.
so
What are
she's
we
up
up
to
to? I think this is 28, so she better, just two
so-
a day, Christy. Settle down.
she's up to episode 10. So
Right, that's when we
so
really start to find our groove.
days, 9 days time, she might be up to this episode.
Excellent. Well, shout out to you, Christy. Thanks for tuning in. I think you might have told me, Nick, that one of her friends might have said, "Oh, what are you listening to a podcast called the Woke Blokes podcast for?" But there's a lot of stuff for the ladies in this show.
We have lots of lady listeners. Actually, lots of ladies use it to plant seeds for their husbands and partners. I suggested to a lot of clients that say, "How can I get my husband to open up and ask for help and come and see you?" I say, "Well, just play the podcast in the background. Just play it in the kitchen when you're cooking dinner together, or when you're just chilling out. Just have it ticking over in the background, and they'll come into it, and maybe something will resonate and grab them, and who knows." So
Yeah. No, so ladies, and that's a good segue, Nick, because we have a magnificent, wonderful lady on the show today.
we have a very woke lady with us today. We have a woke woman, and her name's Debra Bull. Welcome, Deb.
Nico, your audio is cutting out there. Deb, we're going to continue chatting. You can hear me okay?
Hello. Yes, I can, Ryan.
Yes.
Ryan,
Well,
thank
I'm
you for having me.
no problem. I'm going to intro you while Nick's frozen on our screen here in another dimension.
We're back.
You're back.
He's back in the twilight.
My internet connection is unstable.
I think you're a little bit unstable, Nick.
Yeah, I think you're a judgmental bastard.
All right. The intro, Nick. Can you please introduce the wonderful Deb from Soul Evolution?
I can. The wonderfully woke woman, Deb from Soul Evolution. Deb and I, how long has it been? Probably a decade, maybe a bit longer.
About that, yeah.
Yeah. So I finished my study and open up my business, and then I don't know, I was googling something and soul evolution popped up, and I just felt compelled to ring, and I did, and I went and met with Deb, and she was running some group classes, and yeah, we just got chatting, and there was just an instant connection, a synergy, I suppose. Souls, recognizing souls. And then Deb did my numerology profile, and that was amazing and super insightful and super helpful. And yeah, a lot of the time, when I'm wondering about things, I'll go to Deb for a tarot reading, because I like to have a foot in the spiritual and the science camps, a foot in both. I think it'd be ignorant of this just to stay in one or the other. So
Totally agree.
And yeah, so Deb and I have been great friends for many, many years, and she's a confidant, she's a friend, she's a colleague, she's someone who I refer clients to. She's helped many of my friends through the numerology profiles, so when a friend has a baby, I'll instead of getting them a blanket or a toy or whatever,
Flowers or something.
Yeah, I'll get them a numerology profile done for their newborn baby, and every single person I've done that for is going, fuck, this is amazing, this is awesome, this is what my child's sort of gonna be like, and it just gives them a bit of an insight into what's going on.
What a great gift.
So,
it's way better than a shitty blanket.
Well, it's a gift that keeps on giving, and so is Deb. So, Deb, welcome. Hi, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Nick. I do hope I live up to that wonderful introduction.
That was pretty
Thank
good,
you
wasn't
very
it?
much. It was good, yes. I'm just sort of trying to flatten the head down a little. Numerology is amazing, and those charts, especially for new parents that you said, are just a wonderful way for a parent to guide their child and nurture their child. It's not an exact blueprint, but it gives you the laneway in which you can manoeuvre. And generally, you could probably answer this, Nick, too. Once the children have become a little bit older and you start to see their personality emerging, you can often see what the chart originally wrote in it, and you can see it unfolding before your eyes.
Do you know, one of the most baffling things for me was I've done a lot of Myers-Briggs and all this sort of personality tests, Hass. I don't know if you have, but then Deb's numerology profile, I know you've had the pleasure of receiving one from Deb. For the listeners, it's like a 20-page in-depth, sort of, I don't know, what would you call it?
You explain it, Deb. Like, that's for people who are maybe tuning in. There's some guys, they've heard the term numerology, but they can't really put a finger on it. They're like, oh, it's just the stars and the planets and stuff, but they don't know. What sort of, how can we explain this in layman terms and give an idea for people?
Okay, well, if I can, I'm going to go back a few centuries. In numerology, hang on.
Oh, we've got some background music. This is going to be epic.
This is Pythagoras
music,
ringing.
The angels, everyone's here.
Pythagoras is ringing. Yeah, well,
just to remind you that A squared equals B squared plus C squared.
Well, have a listen. How's Pythagoras connected to numerology, Deb?
Well, back in ancient days, a lot of people, mathematicians, believe that numbers unveiled, we'll say, the soul's journey. In fact, they believe that the whole existence of humanity is based on math, whether that be the environment, the earth, people, all of those things. So Pythagoras was a mathematician that then wanted to open it up a little bit wider. And what he did is look at it from a divining perspective, understanding human nature and the human soul, and why are we brought here. Many will struggle through their lives. So while I'm no mathematician, believe me, he basically put together a system of numbers that was dependent on your date of birth and the name given at birth. And from that, it can unveil what your life destiny or purpose is, how that motors along, who's your ideal love, what's your ideal career, so on and so on and so on. It really is, if I use it in today's terms, it's a GPS for life.
That's a
So
good
And
term.
as I was
GPS
saying,
will,
it was so similar to those Myers-Briggs tests and personality tests, and that was the most mind-blowing thing about it. All these psychological profiles were. I think the numerology one was more beneficial than any of those.
So this is going
yeah,
back
I
a long
suppose a
way,
lot of
because
those
Pythagoras was what, 500 BC, like a long time ago.
ancient times,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. And back in those days, if you look at it, astrologers and astronomers were actually one. Now it's been separated, and astronomers, don't hold a very good opinion of astrologers, and it's sort of gone its separate direction. But if you go back to ancient days, they were all the same. Your Nostradamus, they were the great thinkers, I suppose, and philosophers. So based just on that, they believe that, what do you want to call it, energy, the stars colliding, the perfect storm it's your perfect storm. Now, like anything in life, we can be given the positives, but within those positives, there's always too much of that energy or too little of that energy. Let me give you an example. I'm a one life destiny. So the goal is to be a leader, but with humility, to be original, to be an individual. And if you ask my mother, she would say yes. Debbie would stomp her feet because I am who I am. So I knew it from a very early age, whereas my brother was quite happy to float. Now, if I have too much of that one energy and express it in an ineffective way, I become arrogant, I become difficult, I become egotistical. If I have too little of that energy, then I become insecure, underconfident, weak. The goal, and with a numerologist's goal, is to be able to guide you back to center.
Right.
But most people would know deep down and would be already expressing those energies without even realizing it. Sometimes you can look at people and go, oh, she is a pure four. You can see it dripping off her. Whereas other people might be more of a balance, and they've got a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of this and a bit of that, all blended into one. And so those characteristics will also be expressed. So just an amazing tool. Many people will ask me the question, who am I? What am I meant to be doing? How am I meant to be doing it? Well, as you know, numerology can unveil all of that. Now, it's not an exact
interesting
science.
how you said you sorry, Deb. It's interesting how you said they come back to you bring them back to being centered. Because I was speaking to a client yesterday, and I don't know where I've got this idea. It may be from spending a lot of time with you, but I sort of see that we'll have a life path, and I can tell when people have strayed from their life path, and the further from our life path that we stray, the more agitated, anxious, angry, upset, frustrated, disturbed we'll get. So it's really all about bringing people back to that balance or center life path, that genuine, authentic self that's in harmony, I suppose, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think people ask, well, how will I know? And I think if it feels right, it probably is. And if you're feeling uncomfortable or awkward, or this isn't working, you're probably in the wrong lane. And that's when numerology, I suppose, can open up and say, well, actually, this is your lane, because everybody has a lane. Some have big lanes and some have smaller lanes, but a lane exists for everybody, and to fit all those personalities so that you can walk the lane and feel more comfort with self. I think that's the key with everything. If you feel comfortable That's your soul going,
So it's living in
yay!
flow. It's living in flow instead of living in
Yes.
force, isn't it?
Absolutely. You're not forcing it. You're not resisting it. You're just flowing. And if you think of water in a similar way, water flows. It will always find that bigger body of water. But sometimes there are logs and branches and stuff in the way.
Rocks.
And that water has to, work a lot harder to get to where it's going. But it will eventually get there. We all do. Just how long you want to make it and how hard you want to make the journey.
Because the journey's everything, right? I'm really interested,
Well,
Deb.
it.
I'm interested in the too much of this energy and sort of what maybe creates that and what that looks like. It's like you were uncovering with this numerology what is our true nature, which is in turn kind of like you could say our strengths, because that's what we find natural. So then how do we get in trouble with getting too much of that energy? Is that the way we're expressing the environment that we're in, or a combination of those?
All of the above, yes. So it could be that you are born to maybe very dominant parents and you had to fight your way to have your voice heard. So a lot of the times our outside influences can express how that energy is expressed. It also depends on the other numbers in your chart. Do they work together? Do they pull apart? How do they, all merge in to make the one cake and make it come out beautifully? So there's a lot of different ingredients, but essentially, like my parents, I'm the one, they encouraged my independence, my father did, whereas my mother perhaps, I don't know, ignored me a little, so I had to be independent. So I got two examples, if that makes sense. One was a good example, one maybe not so good. It's then up to me how I express that. But Nick would understand, being a sensitive, I was always called difficult, or because I'd stomp my feet a lot, like that's not fair. And that's very one. You've got to say your piece. But sometimes those voices can be pushed down. And so then the one voice is down here. You're not saying what you wish to say, with love, of course. You're not going to feel right. It's like swallowing rotten milk. Yeah. You're going to throw up. And in a sense, our bodies work a lot quicker and more efficiently than our emotions. Because if our body, if it hits our stomach and says, I don't want you here, it'll make its way out very quickly. Emotionally, we shove it all in, we pack it all in just to make more room, and it's not vomiting out, if you want to use that term. We're not releasing what we need to release. So we could take a good tip from our body, in a sense, that it's an excellent releaser.
Yeah, so good. Are you able to share maybe some times in your life, Deb, when these energy has gotten out of control or gotten too much?
Well, I'd be very happy if I can refer it to, say, my drinking journey.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Just very quickly, my background, alcoholic. I did many years AA, and I've been about 22 years sober now. However, one thing I learnt while I have time under my belt, today is just today, and no different to anyone else. It's today what matters, yeah? Regardless of whether they've got a year or 10 years. So for me, if I think of that while I'm on the theme of the one, a lot of the time, I mentioned my mother, so a lot of my confidence was, I suppose, suppressed. So therefore, in my life, I found by drinking, a bit more confident. I was a bit more of a party girl. At the third drink, you'd get your groove going. So originally it was, you hear all the things. I felt 10 foot tall and bulletproof, and I wasn't. But the alcohol soon turned on me. But during that time, I would get involved in really bad relationships that would damage my insecurities. Of course, I let it happen. I would feel jealous, insecure, I never felt right. Then I would put myself, I worked in corporate for many years. And while I was, I could run off the seat of my pants, it wasn't my environment. It was always more, 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 more. So, wrap in a really dysfunctional personal life, a career life that, probably wasn't my true path. It led me to under-express in some cases where I had no confidence and no faith in myself. In other cases, I would get angry and then I would be feisty and some would say a little bit aggressive. Never physically, but certainly verbally, especially if I had a lot of drink in me, but never balanced. Yeah. So I suppose it took many years because ones are very tough. They don't like to be pushed down. But eventually the drink turned on me, as it does with most people when you're drinking alcoholically. I was taught there's 3 endings. There's the cemetery, the asylum, or death, or police, jail. So I didn't like the look of those endings, and I could see one of them was going to arrive very quickly.
It's not a great menu of options, is it, Deb?
Not really, no. Take your pick,
Ryan got to do some hard time, Deb. Ryan chose one of those endings, and
yeah, well, I've had my teardrop tattoo removed. I had a laser surgery, but yeah.
Yeah, and after three days in lockdown. Yeah.
But time's relevant, irrelevant. It's not. It doesn't really. It's just a concept.
All we've got is today, really.
That's right.
And I always remember you're that far away from your next drink. So it's never, it's always there, even though you've learnt to manage it better. But so Ryan, you would probably find the same. You, Nick, in whatever area of your life. Pain is actually a really amazing thing because it gets you moving.
It's a good motivator.
You motivated.
Yeah.
People normally don't go to the dentist by choice. They go because something's hurting.
I went yesterday by choice because I've learnt that I don't want to have a root canal. No, it's because I've experienced the pain of having. Well, I've experienced the pain of a root canal, which I then learnt I didn't want to experience again. So now I do operate in a proactive way. I still go to see a mental health practitioner because of the depression and anxiety I've suffered. So I take a proactive approach with my mental health and well-being. I go to the doctors regularly to get my blood pressure and because I don't want to wait until something bad happens before I then make a reactive decision. So
it's the preventative measure as opposed to the reactive.
And it's when the universe, we only change when the discomfort of staying where we are becomes greater than the discomfort involved in moving or doing things differently or changing. So a lot of people who aren't in that preventative, proactive mindset have to wait until the fire's hot enough underneath their ass before they go, shit, I've got to move and shift and do things differently, which is human nature, I think.
Mm.
Well, it is, but I actually think it's our friend. It's there for, we're designed perfectly, if you want to call it. So really pain is the way the universe knows that we're going to do something about it. So they give us ample opportunity before because there are bumps and potholes and cliffs and all sorts of things. But to make that change, you need the pain. Like, I've had enough. The old saying, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
What's that other one, Deb? I think it was pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
Correct, and it is.
Yeah.
Think about it this way. Let's use the physical. If I put my finger on the stove, what's the first thing I'm likely to do?
Ouch.
Pull back.
Well, ouch, but you did it. Remove it.
Yeah.
Straight away. Emotionally, we don't do that. We'll keep our finger on, and we'll keep it on, and we'll keep it on, and keep keeping it on, and now I've got a 3rd-degree burn, and now I'm suffering. So
I read this book last night.
Sorry?
Sorry, Deb, go on.
I was going to say the analogy is really, if we keep ourselves in toxic situations and painful situations, they're going to create more pain, deeper pain, like the third-degree burn.
I'm reading this book at the moment called Passionate Presence by Ingram. I think you'd love her work, Deb. She's very Buddhist approach, and she was talking about suffering in this chapter of the book last night. She said it's like a snake bite. So the initial bite, the initial trauma, often hurts, but the real issue comes with the venom afterwards and how it affects us. So there's that initial pain, initial suffering, but then there's the toxicity that occurs afterwards, which is where the real damage is done.
Absolutely, and I think pain, as I said, it's a great friend, but if you don't tend to that pain, it will then become suffering.
And a lot of men do that. A lot of men, we've spoken about this, they're like, I'm not in pain, I haven't got a broken leg, I don't have feelings, I don't have this. They're very disconnected from their emotions, so they can't actually comprehend and understand that they are in pain. So they don't even know that damage is being caused because they're so far removed from it.
Yeah, it's like the system's constricted, but if it's been constricted for so long, that becomes normal. It's like if I had my hand on the stove, but then I had it there for like a few years, then that's just normal now, and I haven't. It's like it's been cloudy and I can't see the sun, but I just think life's cloudy. So this stuff becomes normal. It's not till some people, especially men, start to work on this stuff and let go that we're like, oh my God, I've been holding on for so long.
I'm interested, guys. I love men, but by nature, men won't go to the doctor until it really, really hurts. What do you think that is? What prevents that? As women will be more open with their emotions and they'll tell anyone they meet, really.
Well, I'll go first. I'll go first, Nick.
Yeah.
There's cultural indoctrination that men go through that's very, very, culture based. Yes, we can learn on individually because seeing our dad and the other men in our life, but just culturally, and I think things are starting to change slowly, like cultural things do. But it's this thing that men are, this bullshit macho. I'll be right. It's like I don't want to talk about my emotions. I don't want to go to the doctor until it's too late. And so we just put off and put off and put off. And I don't know if that also has evolutionary roots. For the vast majority of our evolution, men were out hunting and the women were gathering, and women would be around talking a lot, open. Men were out in groups of other men, very quiet. There wasn't much talking going on. So men, by that nature, learned to be very, very quiet. So I don't know if there's evolutionary roots, there's cultural roots, and then there's also the individual beliefs that we pick up from, dad, granddad, all that kind of stuff. Who are like, everything's fine.
I think I completely agree, Hass. I think there's many factors contributing towards it. It's a bit of a perfect storm, but on the surface in this day and age, something that we can deal with is that toxic masculinity. It's that I have to be seen as tough. It's I have to put on a brave face and just endure it. I have to endure this, and I can't share it. I don't want to burden anyone else. I can't be seen to be weak, and if I ask for help, that's being weak. And that's a huge misconception, because as I talk to my clients, it takes more strength to let go and to open up and to ask for help than it takes to remain holding on to something out of fear. But women do it as well. There's a lot of women that are afraid to ask for help, when they've got new mothers, because they've got this, I'm going to be seen as imperfect, or people are going to think that I'm an idiot because I don't know how to. I'm going to be judged. I'm a terrible mother because I don't know how to change a nappy, and if I ask, then I'm seen as incompetent.
And they think that every other mother's perfect.
Yeah. So I think, while it may have evolutionary roots, I think the main cause of it is the ego, and if we can start to reduce the ego and shift that, then.
I've got the image of men, and this is the thing, like showing off their scars, like round a campfire. And it's
Yeah.
this whole thing like, yeah, but look at this one here. Oh, Basil, that's a bad one, but look at mine. It's this real weird
But
ego thing
modern
that's
day,
going on.
the modern day version of that is, oh, I worked 50 hours this week. Oh, well, I worked 60 hours this week. Oh, that's nothing. I did 70 hours this week. That's the modern day show us your scar. This is how much suffering I can endure.
Yep.
It's interesting. I've looked at it through dogs, and male dogs will piss everywhere. Oh, there's a couch. That's new. I'll have a little, just a mark, and I'll put my territory here, and I'll leave my seed here.
That's
and
what
I'll
you do,
piss on
Nick.
this just to... Yes, well, Nick, you haven't told me about that. But
Ryan, I
female
told that to
dogs
you in
won't.
confidence.
Female dogs don't do it as much. They're not as inclined to want to mark their territory. Yes, outside they will, but male dogs have that. That's mine and my territory. So
Dominance, you think?
Sorry?
Dominance? This trying to establish dominance?
Possibly. And if you go back to what you were saying, Ryan, if we go back to our primitive days and our primitive DNA, they had to be strong. They had to be fierce in order to survive. And if you go back there, it was the physically inclined male that was the popular male. Nowadays, not necessarily.
Well, I'm reading this book on nature at the moment, and they've been researching about the alpha male and how the alpha male is actually detrimental to the species survival, because it's the male that actually spends more time with the women of the species and builds bonds and relationships and trust and everything, that has more of a chance of mating than the alpha male who just comes in and dominates and takes over.
Yes.
So it's more the omega male now instead of the alpha male.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Explain what the omega.
What's the omega male?
So it's probably the more woke one, the more emotionally intelligent, the more understanding that I have a ripple effect and I will affect the rest of my species or tribe or pack or family or whatever it is. So they're more in tune with their surroundings and what's going on, and they don't have to be less ego, pretty much. They don't have to be pat on the back and rewarded for saving the day and for just carrying the world on their shoulders. They're actually, let's all work together, and I don't have to be seen as being the best. It's that ego's not involved.
It's interesting. It's like makes me think of, we have this avatar of what an alien looks like, and who knows, where that's come from. And it's like, so obviously if an alien race is visiting us, they're much more advanced than we are because we can't go find them and visit them. And then the avatar of this alien is like massive head, like assuming like big brain and big eyes and quite a frail body. Like quite, skinny arms and legs. So it's like we've created this avatar of a more advanced race, and it doesn't look like how we've come from. Which, and I'm part meathead. I love the gym. I'm not against that. But it's like this avatar we've created seems to be a lot more intelligent, woke, or whatever you want to call it, and less physically alpha than we're used to seeing in humans.
Yeah, totally.
So a bigger head than abs, really, and
yeah.
Not than Ryan's abs.
I wanted to ask you, because what I notice now, while men are becoming, you mentioned the omega male, I think women are starting to ramp up their aggressiveness. You see them on the road, they're just far more aggressive these days. And I don't know, I'm not putting an overall term, but aggressive may be the wrong word, but they're just more forceful, I think.
Well, I think that comes from so much suppression, and it's just a natural response. If you contain something long enough against its will, it's gonna try and escape and try and get out. So women, I think, are having to force their way out because these big alpha meathead males have suppressed them for so long.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of different energy going on. Like, I think we're all slowly, even though we're getting massive in numbers, I think that actual population will start to decrease. But we're moving towards all becoming very similar. You know, we're understanding that obviously men and women are equal, like but also like the race stuff that's happening at the minute. Like we're moving towards, we're all going to be as a species of like a light brown skin, like moving forward, just because of the interracial sexual encounters and everything. So we're heading towards this more equality, but then I think that's energetically on a collective level is magnifying all the suppression of different, women, black people, all that kind of stuff.
Who's that dude that the Canadian, that the guy that had the the real woke dude,
Like around now?
Yeah.
Canadian.
Michael Peterson or
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
And have you listened to him speak about equality? And he's like, men and women aren't equal. We are very different. We should strive for equality because we both bring different strengths and different weaknesses and etc. But we are inherently different beings. We're not equal. We can lift more than most women, and women can, care emotionally more than most men. So
he's talking about, I think I've heard that in the workforce in particular, because he was weighing in on the debate around the pay differences between men and women, because women want to work more in groups and go towards certain jobs, whereas men, we like doing the dangerous shit and all that kind of stuff. So then it's like, should things be equal? But I think that's right. We do have different strengths or weaknesses, but as a being, equal. But because of that suppression.
He said women are trying to take these more male-dominant roles, where he wonders why that's necessary when men wouldn't do well in more women specific roles. So he said, why can't we all just be different?
I think what you're talking about is, instead of equality, maybe respect. Within all of our capabilities, women have gifts that maybe aren't men's, natural attunements, and men, as you said, they can lift a lot more and pull a lot more and, like the tree out. But of course, men have evolved into a lot more too. They're worth more than just that these days. As women are no longer just breeders, just having children, being a wife, and that's it. So I think the places are sort of changing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Deb, can we shift gears and we've spoken about numerology? Can we dive into some tarot and some and talk about?
Wait, can I ask one thing before we jump into that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Deb, how'd you stop drinking?
How did I stop drinking? We talked about pain. I think that was my signal. I was at the end of my road, basically coming home on a train, suicidal, wrote a note, had everything ready to go, but I walked across the road to the doctor. I got some pills. It was very easy, and I was obviously distressed. But something stopped me from going home, and Mum had a shop in Frankston, so I went in there and literally just fell to my knees. And from there, I went to an AA meeting that night, and I was ready. I was ready to listen. I was ready to hear. I was ready to surrender. And what I heard were people that drank like me. And that was an enormous relief to know that I wasn't immoral, or there was something, there was something wrong with me. I was sick.
But you weren't the only one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that sense of belonging. And I think everybody needs a tribe. I don't know if it's the same for male alcoholics, but as a female alcoholic, I felt very alone and very judged, because females usually express their alcoholism in different ways, we become lovers, not fighters, so to speak. So it was that first night at AA, the penny just went bang, and I was ready, to go. So we've talked of the perfect storm. I just think everything was ready. I was mature enough to know. I was 33 at the time. I'd had enough knocks and, burnt bridges to know that, life wasn't happy, and it certainly wasn't productive. And I was nearing the end. In fact, alcohol kills on so many levels. I remember one night I lived alone. And I need to share this story to show you how easy it is to just go. And I'd come home drunk, as normal, off my head, in blackout, and thought a bath would be good at this time. So done the bath, blah, blah, blah. I've woken up the next morning red, just red. I'd forgot to put cold water in the bath. Now, I can only thank my protectors or just luck, damn good luck. It certainly wasn't good planning that I lived through that, because that could have sent a body into shock.
Yeah. Cooked yourself.
I could have easily died. And that's how alcoholics die. They fall, they hit their head, they get in a boiling hot bath, blah, 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 blah. So I knew I was in trouble. I just didn't quite know what was wrong with me. So going to my first AA meeting, it just resonated. And I think the key, I was ready. Yeah. I was suffering by this stage. I saw the words hope on the table. And often when someone walks into AA, that's about all they've got left is hope. And so I made an analogy of that and thought, how can I get this hope? So H, I need to be honest, because alcoholics aren't honest. No addict is honest, not because they're not honest people. There's so much shame. I needed to get honest. O, I needed to be open-minded and give this AA a really good go. Not walk in there closed-minded. Oh, it's for people like me. It was for people like me, believe me. The P, which was never a skill of mine, persistence. The only thing I persisted with was drinking. So that was an interesting one. But put all those things together, and I think that's the part to evolution.
Evolution.
The hope is all those things. Yeah. Sorry, Nick.
Now, so do you, I don't think I know the answer to this, but do you still go to AA meetings? Do you still consider yourself an alcoholic?
Sometimes. I did 6 meetings a week for 6 years to clean the head. And a lot of people said to me, you'd be familiar with these terms, Ryan, it's like brainwashing. And I thought, well, my brain was pretty dirty. It needed a good place. It had filth. So, brainwashing or not, it was a good brainwashing. I don't see it as brainwashing. I see it as an alternative for a better life, and that there is a way out of this. There's a doorway out. You know, alcoholics will often bash their head against the wall until they find the door. It's always been there.
A lot of the time people are drinking as a form of coping mechanism, self-medicating to, numb the pain that they're feeling. My question, I guess, has always been around, is there any healing done to alleviate the cause, which is then going to change their effect? Because I hear a lot of people say, hi, my name's such and such, and I'm an alcoholic, and that they reinforce this narrative that they're an alcoholic. So to me, as an ignorant outsider, it doesn't seem that there's any capacity to any time be free from the concept of being an alcoholic, because it's always just, as you said, it's always just there. The next drink is just there. It's always just around the corner. But for so many people, they're drinking as a byproduct or an effect. Is there any work done that you've seen about changing the root cause, which can free someone and someone can leave going, okay, I'm no longer an alcoholic. I did drink and I was an alcoholic in a past sense because I needed the medication, but now I don't need the medication and I no longer resonate as being an alcoholic?
For me, I forgot the first bit of your question. Sorry, could you just shorten that question?
Yep, so it was about is there healing done?
Sorry,
yeah,
I'm
is
back.
there healing?
I'm back.
It's
just
cause and effect.
For a bit. When I went to AA, I was told by multiple people, drinking is only 10% of your problem. The other 90% is emotional and mental.
Yeah.
So I suppose for me, that raw, hard, real world of AA served to help the physical. But for me, I then went down the spiritual path to heal the emotional. But for most alcoholics, and you would possibly agree, Ryan, 10% is only the drinking. The rest is what goes on inside your head and within your emotional centre, the turmoil.
I would say even
So
less than 10%.
In the AA model, though, why do they need to keep reinforcing a belief that they're an alcoholic instead of coming to a space where it can be a chapter of my life where I was an alcoholic because I had these internal injuries that have now healed, and so I don't need that medication? Why isn't that the model?
I think to me, it's not about, keep telling yourself you're an alky. It's about reminding and reminding until you change the mindset. It also stops you from becoming complacent, and complacency is where you're going to reach out and pick up that first drink.
It
So I
sounds
think
very fear-based, though, Deb.
the third from the disease, alcoholism, I believe, is a physical disease. So it would be nice to say to the diabetic, you can just turn it off, can't you? You can't just turn off a disease once it's been activated. You can manage it, but
Is it a
I don't
disease
want
in
to risk
everybody,
picking
though?
up that drink.
Because I would agree to an extent there, but I think it would be a disease in maybe 15-20% of the population. The other 80%, I think it's a self-medication for an illness that can be healed with therapy. So I guess AA is probably that very umbrella, treats everyone as that thinks everyone has this disease, so they have to keep reminding themselves and okay, I'm an alcoholic, be careful, be careful, be careful. But yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there that can heal and then be free of that illness. It's like mental health. Like, people have mental illness and mental health issues, and those with mental illness need lifelong medication and management and everything. But most people with anxiety and depression, it's a reactive thing to their thinking styles, which can change. So therefore, they don't have to go through life saying, "I'm a depressant, I'm an anxious person." They can heal and
I think the diabetes analogy is a really good one, because you've got so type 1 diabetes you're born with and you have for life, and you need to manage that. But then the majority of people with diabetes have type 2 diabetes, which has been based on lifestyle. So now it's like, now I need to start taking insulin and everything because of the situations have happened in my life that have manifested type 2 diabetes. But you can reverse type 2 diabetes. You can't reverse type 1. So you can then, by making radical changes in your life, your health, your eating, all that kind of stuff, you can reverse it so you don't need the insulin anymore, which I think is a similar kind of analogy that we're talking about.
It's a great metaphor.
And I think for me too, that percentage that are what I call alcoholic, and there's a difference between a heavy drinker and an alcoholic. In the alcoholic brain, now please don't quote me the terminology, but I can tell you the
Ryan's
process.
at the ready.
When an alcoholic drinks,
go on, Deb.
It will transform into a chemical starting with D, detra, blah, 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 blah. And what that chemical does is it's like a morphine-like substance. So it's a real feel-good, I feel great. So what the natural body does is then shut off your endorphins, which are your happy emotions. So you have a great night that night, like life isn't any better than when you're on the tabletop dancing. The next morning you wake up and it's the Velcro to the back of the head and the forehead again. What have I done? What have I said? Oh my God, where am I? So that 20%, once they put alcohol in their system, they hand over control, if that makes sense. Now, would I be able to have a drink after 22 years? I wouldn't want to play with it. Do you know what I mean? I know what thousands of people in AA have said to me, and I've seen, it reminds me of my little friend who goes into AA, then goes back out, then comes back in, goes back out, comes back in. He'd come back in. How you going, mate? Oh, he'd say. Now, I am allowed to swear, am I?
Absolutely.
He'd say, oh, doll, AA's fucked my drinking. And we laugh at that. But it's true, because as his awareness grows and he knows all of these things and his education and knowledge grows, it contradicts every time he picks up a drink and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, the awareness is great.
Absolutely.
And we can't create a utopian society.
Keep going. Because
we can't create the utopian society. And it's funny, I just caught myself, and it could almost sound like I'm arguing for people to drink, which I'm not, because I think as a society, if there was no alcohol, we'd all be a lot healthier and happier and better. So, but it's more of a
I disagree with that, but go on.
Okay. Ooh, well, I'm saying it in general terms.
I'm probably going to stand by Ryan. Sorry.
So you think alcohol is a good part of society?
What would happen if? Because people always say about this to me.
Well, that's why I said, because there's no utopia, so we do need something. So I guess.
But it's
alcohol
so we need something. So that's the thought experiment. Yeah. People say to me, "What are we going to do about this ice epidemic in Melbourne?" And I'm like, "There's not a fucking epidemic of ice. There's an epidemic of emotional pain, and people trying to deal with that by using the most available drug at the minute. It's like it was heroin in the 90s. It'll be opiate pills next, because that's where we use what's ever available. So then it's like, what if I clicked my fingers and I had the magic powers to eradicate all ice from our country? It's gone. Then would those people who are addicted become healthy, happy people? Absolutely not. They would find something else to numb their pain. So then it's like, all right, what if we got rid of all drugs, all alcohol, all psychoactive, these mind-altering drugs? What would happen? These suicide numbers would go like, we think the suicide numbers are bad now, hockey stick. They would go through the roof, and people would start killing themselves.
Rates.
Yeah.
So would the sexual violence rates.
Porn, shopping, debt.
What's the witch for the bitch, really?
Yeah.
Until you clean the inside.
Yes.
So imagine a world where AA existed, and we could figure out who had type 1 diabetes, alcohol, and type 2 diabetes, and so these ones could go get healed and do some work and be free, and these ones could be treated. Is that a possibility? Or
I just think this all comes back down to emotional intelligence, training kids training them to be still, teaching them meditation, having them be in tune with their internal world, having them in an environment at home where they feel so comfortable opening up about themselves. Then all of a sudden, the flow-on effect in 30 years is alcoholism, drug abuse, depression, anxiety. All these numbers just drastically go down. I think that's the way to do it, but it's a long-term solution.
I had a client the other day, and her son, working with the mother and the son. And the mother sent me a heads up saying, hey, this is what happened on the weekend. And the son's 15, and because of Corona, hadn't been able to hang out with his mates for a while, hadn't had any alcohol. So he went out on the weekend with his mates and binge drank, and came home vomiting, really violently ill, passed out, everything. And his justification the next day was interesting, because he said, because I hadn't done it for a while, I just forgot how much I should drink. And I'm like, you're a 15-year-old with a developing brain and developing emotions and all these things, and we all had a beer at 15 or 7, and so I'm trying to figure out what's healthy and how to work with this kid to say, look, it's not healthy to be drinking at that age, and especially to that depth. But then he's also justifying it by saying, well, I'm not doing pills and caps and speed and ecstasy and all these other things. So he's really saying, I'm picking the lesser of all of those evils, but I'm still abusing it at 15.
This is the thing. I don't believe alcohol is the lesser of all these ills. BBC did a documentary on the top 20 drugs and put them in order of their, chemical danger. The top 3, 2 were legal. So it does say something about us. Benzodiazepines, alcohol, and probably crack cocaine, I think. So in terms of as a pure chemical, if you're looking at, say, let's look at an opiate, then we've got marijuana, then we've got alcohol. The chemical of alcohol is in the top 3 most dangerous of all the drugs available on the market.
Yeah, and it's toxic. Yeah, and also there was a really good study done by, I encourage people to look this up, Professor David Nutt. That's N-U-T-T. He got fired for this, but he was a professor at a university in England, and he did a massive study on the actual dangers of psychoactive substances, so harm to the user and harm to the people around them. Really extensive study. You should have seen, my God, alcohol was more than every single other drug combined.
Yeah.
And things like, he put in the paper that you're more likely to be harmed or die from horse riding or being struck by lightning than MDMA, which is ecstasy. And so this is like obviously not the message that the university wanted going out to the kids, but it was very interesting.
That's the thing, Has. I'm not saying, I'm not agreeing that he was picking the lesser of all the evils, because I know how damaging alcohol is to yourself and to others. But if you say to him, it's the most dangerous one, then his 15-year-old mind is going to interpret that as, well, what should I do then? How am I going to be cool? How am I going to still hang out with my friends?
That's the problem. That's the problem, because he's in a socialization phase of his life. This is why teenagers are so bloody hard to work with, because their number one value in life is socializing. And so our culture dictates, how do we socialize? We drink with friends, because that's how we feel connected.
So imagine I'd tell him that he gets off the alcohol and then starts taking pills, and his mum rings me up the next weekend and is like, what the fuck did you say to him? And I'm like, well, it's not as harmful. It's a rock and a hard place, man.
It is a rock and a hard place. I think that with that overarching issue is why can't our kids feel connected and bond without these substances?
But he does. When he goes out into the country and goes to their farm and hangs out with other kids, not in the city, not in the same socio-economic bracket, it's a simpler life, and this stuff's just not available. But he's out there, building farm fences and digging holes, and he's actually of use and connecting with other kids of use and are all healthy. He's a completely different person. So environment is massive.
Well, that's 100%. I think you take him away from the city.
I've seen done in Switzerland or Sweden, one of those Nordic areas that are very progressive, and it does, in a way, help with what you were saying. And I think what you were saying, Nick, is very important. That sense of community. They put a mouse into a cage and they put a drip feed morphine. Heroin, whatever, opiates. And the mouse would continually go back and get off its head and eventually it died. So then they mixed the experiment up, and in the cage they put other mice, they put equipment to play on, they made a little
nice
community.
Fun park.
Yeah, and a little community and other Now the mouse went up to the morphine and took some, but nowhere near as much, and was happy to walk away from it because he had that sense of community. So I think a sense of belonging, which I said at the start was AA, is really important, to have a tribe in life. Because when you feel alone, that's when it brings the worst out of us.
So true.
William
So I think it's
Glasser's
a
work.
combo of everything, Nick. Yeah.
Yeah. So William Glasser has done a lot of work around. He did choice theory and reality therapy, and he's got his. It's not Maslow's hierarchy of needs. William Glasser's 5 basic human needs are a sense of empowerment, to feel like I've got choice, a sense of belonging, a sense of fun, a sense of survival, and a sense of freedom as well.
Yeah.
So when any of those belongings are compromised to a degree, it's going to, our needs aren't being met. We're going to become needy, and we're going to go searching for something to fill that void, fill that hole. And drugs, alcohol, they're all unfortunately readily available for kids to fill those holes.
I think a good, sense of belonging, and that's building a good community structure, and encouraging people to find that tribe.
Yeah, that's so important, Deb. I've noticed this just since living, I'm in a very quiet area of Koh Samui, and just noticing it. This sense of community that's missing. Like in Melbourne, there's fucking 5 million people, and like where I've moved around, but before we came here, we were in Keysborough, and there's no community. You go to the shopping centre, and there's just thousands of people, and you'll nod at a few people you recognise, but there's no. Everyone's there's so many people, but everyone's just in their own head and disconnected. Whereas here, there might be 20 people down the main street of shops, but you start to really get to know them and form these connections and, help each other out, like, you need eggs, I'm going to the shops tomorrow, Less is definitely more, I think. Yeah.
But social media is sort of being used to fill that gap, but we're more distant than ever, even though everyone's so connected on a technological level. We're emotionally, we're more disconnected than ever.
Yeah.
I think it's worked against us. While social media is good for connecting people and there's many pluses, I think it's also a playground for bullies and for tearing people down, because they're a lot braver when they're behind their keyboards. So we talked about mothers that were unsure before. I mean, in my day growing up, all mothers supported each other, We literally pop next door and get a cup of sugar, We played in each other's backyards. There was that sense of community. And if I think about it, in my street anyway, I didn't see a lot of drugs or alcohol or anything. But, I'm talking 60s, 70s, when that sense of community. Now, you're lucky if you know your neighbours.
It's true.
I have a think about if those needs are met, we don't need other things. So we're such a
it doesn't become as it's the choice becomes further out, if that makes sense, because you're not needing to get away from your
Well, then if you're going to have a drink, it can be through choice of, okay, I just feel like a beer after mowing the lawn. It's not a I need it. It's a I'm choosing to have it because it just is.
Different relationship with the same substance. Deb, let's I've got to wrap up soon, but we got way off track after Nick's question about tarot. So let's come back.
It goes where it goes.
It's good. I'm having a great time, Deb. This is fantastic. Tell us a bit about tarot for those out there. We might have a few blokes listening going, "Oh, tarot, I don't know about that." Let's run us through it.
I think it's about demystifying it. Tarot, Hollywood has done all the death card, a lot of people come to a reading from me, and the first question, I'm not going to die, am I? And I go, yeah, you are.
Yeah, you are. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, you are.
We're all going. It's just the nature of the when, how, and whatever, I don't know.
Everything's impermanent.
Yeah, we've all got the death card.
It simply means an ending.
Yep.
And by the time death appears, it's saying you've been poked, you've been warned, you need to end something. It could be a relationship or a job or whatever. Death comes along like a piece of 4x2 and whacks you. So the warnings get a bit harder and a bit more painful. So the cards themselves are really just, I call them the evolutionary storyteller, because they tell the story of human behaviour and human psychology. And that hasn't changed for centuries. We're still fighting over power, money, sex, jealousy, all of the pains that were thousands of years ago, we're still experiencing today. Our technology's changed, our medicine has changed, our psychology not so much. So with the cards, they really, if I lay them down, because of the mythology, symbology, and the power they hold, they just tell you where you're at. Can they tell you what colour underwear you've got on? No. No one really can do that, because everything can change at any given time. So I say tarot is a tool that can show you the path you're on and show you the potholes there. Or it could say, here's another path, but that's your choice. And this one's a much smoother ride. A little like numerology, just in a different format. You're using cards instead of numbers. People, obviously, some people come along. It's about me educating people with tarot. I will always be transparent and tell people I'm not going to be the person to give you 100 hit predictions, because that's not what this is about.
You can't pick the Tatslotto numbers for people?
Yeah, do you think I would have done it by now? It's about guidance, it's about healing, it's about empowerment. So for me as a tarot reader, if my client leaves feeling more empowered, has choices that they can reach to, and
more clear as well
about their future, then my job is done.
Yeah.
They walk out scared shitless because I told them a yellow car's going to run them off the road, then I've disabled that person, So there are some, I suppose, readers out there that misuse the craft. But then there's doctors out there that misuse their craft, and teachers that misuse theirs. So you're going to find it in every craft that you do. But the ultimate aim, they're really just a deep look into human psychology and human behaviour, which sadly hasn't changed much. And they give you options. They give you the choices. This road will probably involve this, and this road will probably involve that. And they go, I like this road.
Can you flip a few cards for Ryan, see what's in Ryan's path moving forward?
Ooh. What does Ryan need to know? So I'll give them a shuffle for you, Ryan.
What colour undies do I have on, Deb?
Okay.
None.
None. Yeah, Nick, you're psychic.
Ooh, look at this one, Ryan. This is called the Ace of Wands. So I'm going to say right now what the universe is telling you. There's something new, hence the ace.
Okay.
Wands is about energy, passion, excitement. There's a new project. There's something new that is waiting to be watered and tended to and cared for and grown, because it has amazing potential. I don't know if you
does that resonate?
It does. Yeah, I have a couple of new projects that I am just starting or just formulating up here, and I am at a point. Even though my life's pretty exciting, I'm at a point to start something new and take one of these projects by the horns.
Do you want to hear something funny, Deb? I too have a new project that's at its very infancy, so that Ace of Wands resonates with me too.
And so if you look at the symmetry of that, the wand is indicating, hang on, which way do I go? Energy. And dare I say it, the wand is a little phallic in its appearance. Oh. If you look at it closely, it resembles,
Yes.
And if you think about that, put it this way, I think a lot of men have gained a lot of motivation with this energy. if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah. It's been our
I've
main,
got hard on for this.
motivator for years.
It's like
real
a
hard on
Scud
over this new
missile.
project.
It knows where it's going.
I was going to point that in the right direction and I'm fine.
Absolutely. And the passion
don't
you
let it
feel
rule.
like, I'm going to get that, I'm out to get it. You'll do anything you need to do within reason to achieve that goal. That's sort of similar. So it's
Love it.
saying, oh, there's great promise here. So the question would be, how do you get there? And this is, you've got this. Just 3 ladies cheering.
Oh, okay.
I would say it's about networking. This is not just a solo project. There
Well,
would need to be
it's funny, these projects that are just formulating are collaborations. They're not things I'm doing myself. So once again,
so it
resonating.
must say collaboration will be very successful.
Okay.
You'll probably work well in collaborations, yeah? You've got a really easy type energy. Not easy, you know what I mean. It's an
No,
No, he's easy.
I'm very, very easy.
He's easy.
See this
What's
is,
that one?
so I call him Rambo. See his head's bandaged.
Mhm.
It looks a little like Sylvester Stallone.
It does.
So this project, if you think about it, Ryan, I would say this has got a lot to do with your journey into, sobriety, into finding yourself, all of those things. It's been a huge battle for you, but you've done exceedingly well. It's not always been up. There's been many downs as well. The good news, you're almost there. They're saying for this project, there's one last thing left to do. It might be to get that collaboration moving, but it's saying a lot of it is based on your past battles. So it's those past battles that you'll be able to bring the knowledge forward
into this new project.
That
Okay.
lived experience. God,
And
this
let's
is like a
just
double
see
reading.
the overall
It's a
result.
double.
There's
It's a-
the overall result, sun. So the sun is the S card. And I think if you do those things, it's get it moving, breathe it back into life, get it excited again, get your collaboration moving, get everybody in the project moving together, draw on your experience because it will be important. Don't give up if it gets a bit hard. Keep going because you're going to, we talked about the cloud that's blocking the sun. I think you can remove the cloud and allow the sun to shine for many people. So
I feel like I'm going to tear up here, Deb. You're getting me right in the feels.
I do often bring people to tears. It's a gift I have.
Yeah,
The
likewise.
tear maker.
I did it a lot when I was drinking too, but anyway.
Beautiful, Deb.
what's
Thank
the
you
most
so
end
much.
A little look. Nick, let's just pull one out for you, shall we?
Well, all of those resonated for me, Deb. So I was
Did
hijacking. I was hijacking
We'll leave it
Ryan's
as it is.
reading.
We'll
Yeah.
leave it as it is.
You just
Well,
saw the phallus card and you got a bit excited and wanted to jump in.
Yeah.
See, mind in the gutter, Deb. That's where his
I've
mind
had
is.
my share of those things, and I know that once they've got their target set, there's nothing to stop
What's
them.
that lockdown? Deb, I'm going to tell you about my future business plans, and those cards are hilariously, in
On
play.
point.
Hassan, I'll tell you about them as well later.
Beautiful,
But if
beautiful.
you,
Good.
both of you are similar in the sense that you do similar sort of work. So
Yeah.
that's why I say that I thank the universe every day for the crawl in the mud that I did because it made me a better person. It made me more compassionate. It just made me a better me.
Well, you
I think that
made
Robbie
you a better
Williams
you,
song.
'cause you took the you took the lessons and the learnings from those things. It gave you the opportunity to become a better person, but you
Yes.
did that yourself.
Absolutely. I've
As
done
we
the
all did.
work.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that what makes it so much sweeter. Someone hasn't handed it to me.
But so many people get stuck and life happens and they get beat up and they'll stay in that victim mentality, that woe is me, that it's not fair, I can't believe this happened. So life can happen equally to all three of us, and thankfully the three of us are of a mindset where we look for the value and learn and grow. We see that shit as manure that's going to help us to grow. But a lot of people just feel that that shit is just them getting dumped on and they go nowhere. So the universe will provide opportunities, but we have to seize the day.
Turn the manure into flowers.
Yay.
Absolutely. You know, I know you're finishing up, but people often ask me, was it hard giving up drinking? And I say, yeah, it was hard, but it was harder drinking.
Yep.
Life was much harder drinking. Always chasing my tail. So, yes, the journey's not an easy one, but it's much easier than the drinking journey.
Well, with smoking, when I used to help people to stop smoking with hypnotherapy, I'd say to them, it's so much harder to start smoking than it is to stop smoking, because you've got to inhale toxins and poisons and smoke into the lungs, which is, you've got to override so many survival mechanisms. Like stopping smoking is just common sense. It's logical. It's rational. It's easy when you alter your relationship with it. So,
and if they think of that journey of smoking, that when it gets to the point where they have lung disease and, you know, their breathing limits their life, existence, and then they end up on oxygen, and then they have emphysema. So it would have been much easier giving up, wouldn't it?
Oh, Deb, this has been an absolute pleasure. This has been so much fun. That was
I can feel a part 2 coming on.
Yeah, I know. That was like the fastest, hour and a quarter ever.
I don't want to leave. I feel like the third stooge.
I know. I love it. I think we've got the woke woman. I think that's
a woke woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, forget Wonder Woman. Forget Wonder Woman. We got woke woman.
We got woke woman. It's like.
I love it, Deb. But before we go, where can people find you? soulevolution.net.au?
soulevolution.net.au. Inquiries at soulevolution.net.au. Facebook, Instagram. And my number, am I able to give that out?
Absolutely, Deb.
Do you think?
0499 019 596. All readings are half price at the moment because of COVID. So I
encourage people take that offer. Like,
I do too.
If this is, tweaked you a little bit and it's something you maybe haven't thought about before, hopefully today's been enlightening, and you'll reach out to Deb and get one of those readings done, and it's well worth it.
So people don't have to be in person, Deb. They can do it on the phone or over the computer or something.
I know Deb's learning technology. It's a wonderful tool.
So if you're sitting there in Dubbo listening to this and you think, geez,
I know, I've moved on from the Polaroid camera.
If you're in the States, anywhere.
Yeah, so if someone's anywhere in Australia or the world listening, Deb, they can get in touch with you and get a reading. You can do a numerology profile like you did for Ryan without meeting him. All you need is their name at birth and their date of birth. So lots of value in connecting with Deb.
No worries. Thank you so much, Deb. Thanks for sharing all of your knowledge, your journey. It's been very, very inspiring, and I'm about to go and tackle this new project. I'm pumped up.
Oh,
you go. Like a scud missile. You know where your target is, go for it.
I'm going to go downstairs, and Melissa's like, put that thing away, for God's sake. I'm like, I'm inspired, babe. I'm inspired.
I start knocking vases over. And
What a beautiful visual to wrap up on. Thank you all for listening to the Woke
Blokes
podcast.
Like a dog tail, isn't it? It cleans the coffee table.
We're done.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.